All right. Welcome to The Brand Called You. Today, the brand we are speaking with is Ashwini Gupta, universally and affectionately known as Ash. Ash was born and educated in India. He studied engineering at IIT Delhi and then came to Columbia for his MBA. He was most recently president of Global Credit Risk and Information Management at American Express, where he worked for 41 years. Now he's very active with several cutting edge firms. He's chairman of Corridor Platforms, which is a risk management platform. He's also on the board of Nova Credit, Encore Capital, and advisor to several firms like Nexus Venture Capital, H2O.ai, Oliver Wyman, and Biz2 Credit. He also runs his family foundation, Ashwini and Anita Gupta Family Foundation. Welcome to the show, Ash.
Thank you. Pleased to be here.
Ash, the average job tenure for millennials is 13 months, and you spent just short of 500 months at American Express. How did you find the motivation? How did you keep it fresh and going for so long?
I think that in my entire tenure, the principal driver of staying was congruence of values between home and office. Our values were all driven around humility, compassion, and integrity. That we, taking care of the customer first on anything, and our people first on anything we did. And even as our businesses changed, our values did not change. And I can sort of show this congruence in many ways. At one time, I remember my son, who was in college, called and said, "Dad, I can't find my cards. Maybe somebody stole it." And I spoke to him and I said, obviously cars can get stolen, but most times when people can't find the cars, they've forgotten where they parked. And why don't you call the police and, describe to them what happened? So police came by and police went through step by step when he last saw the car. And within 5 minutes, he was able to find the car because he had forgotten where he had parked. And he called me back and he said that, this incident gave him confidence that when an emergency arrives, he can trust mom and dad more than anybody else. And that was the main important value at American Express. When something went wrong, we did not pinpoint finger at who created the problem. We worried about a solution. And months later, we tried to figure how to learn from that experience. We never ignored it. Another time, my son called at 2 a.m. from a train station saying that he was stuck there and it was snowing very heavily. And he asked, if we could pick him up. And my wife and I just went and picked him up. Never asked him how he arrived there and so on. Never asked him any questions about that. But later on, he described how he got stuck there as well. On a personal office note, the same thing that I could shed more light on as well.
So you really took never leave home without it mantra from American Express in your personal life as well. Huh?
As well, yeah, the congruence of values was there that, during the Great Recession, every day when you went to work, the evening when you came back was worse for the company than the morning. And you felt that somehow, you were the cause. I was the cause of the problem. And I remember a very important discussion with our CEO, Ken Schnall. I was going on vacation, a short vacation, and he said, "I want to speak to you before you go on vacation." And I went to his office and he said, in vacation, when you go on vacation, you have a chance to think and reflect. And one thing, please keep in mind that my respect for risk management has become more than ever in this recession, which sounded like a surprise to me. We did come out of the recession well, but for a CEO to give you the sense of confidence in a critical time and to be able to see beyond the immediate issues, that was just very heartwarming for me. So therein lies the values, the interests of customers and people must get ahead of your personal needs. And I think one thing we always said that people will not care for how much you know until they know that you care for them deeply. The second area for me to stay was that we were in a very competitive business all the time. Our business was changing from traveler's check to investment bank to credit cards, etc. But it was always competitive, and we were always trying to be the winners in that business. So the challenge to personally perform and the desire to learn was always large. So you were sort of growing as a human being emotionally and in terms of content. But you're always also feeling like an owner, that you were at a very young age. We would always do this, that if our American Express sign had on the marketplace had dust on it, we would take the time to clean the dust because we wanted our own home to look beautiful to people as well. And I think the final most important reason for me was that I ran into Ken Schnall in 1981 or 82. And, I developed good friendship with him. He remained a mentor and a friend, which he does today as well. And I felt that I could just learn in his company in a very big way and be the best version of myself. So those are some
Yeah.
reasons.
So you found a good mentor, a great company, congruence of values, and then 41 years passed like 41 seconds. No temptation ever? You didn't get a call from a headhunter or CEO of Chase or Citi or Bank of America?
I did get, I think in my memory, there are two times I got a call from CEO of a complex financial institution asking me to join in some very senior capacity. And one of the two times I did go see the CEO in a very confidential setting, not
Okay.
in the office or in the building of the institution. And the CEO did want me to join. He said he had done his homework and he was willing for me to join their bank. I came home, I spoke to my wife about it, the wisdom of it. And obviously, the financial incentive was short-term financial incentive was very large. You could sort of, uh, you know, do a lot better than you were doing before. Not that I was ever doing badly, but in terms of our lifestyle, it was not going to have any change. We sort of live in a very modest lifestyle. But when we evaluated the medium term in terms of my own development as a person, uh, and in terms of my ability to serve as a human being, I came to the conclusion that that was not the right thing for me. And I told them that this was, I was grateful for their looking for me, but I told them that I would prefer to be with American Express. So the one thing in my message that I want to sort of clarify for you, I do not recommend that everybody should be working for one company forever. That's not the,
Mhm.
you have to decide what is the right thing for you. But I also ask people to not sort of jump from one company to another on very short durations. Because the
Mhm.
depth of product, the depth of knowledge you build, the emotional connection you build with people, the mentors that you meet, is only those are only possible when you're working with people for extended periods of time where they can see your strengths, your weaknesses, your development needs, your ability to give and serve each other. So
Yeah.
it,
But Ash, millennials hear this and say, you want us to give up short-term economic gains and the idea that at some point financial incentives stop having meaning and other opportunities on how to grow, how to serve become more important. Maybe comes
yeah,
with age, but millennials don't understand that.
yeah. I think that, you're joining the company when you're 25 years old. You got to realize that you're 40, 50 years to work. And so you have to sort of think of this more as a marathon rather than a
Yeah.
sprint. And one of the advice to me, which I share with others as well, is be the CEO of your own life and of your own career, and make sure that you are accountable to yourself for your own development and for own development for a long time. And rather than just jumping from one job to another, think through every year for a week by listening to others, by asking others, and by your own judgment. what is the best way you would develop as a human being in the next year, and then
Mm.
utilize the other 51 weeks to develop yourself, and avoid thinking how every situation and every action will personally affect you. Okay, just worry about doing an excellent job, just expanding the bandwidth that you have and addressing the areas that abet your existing job, and
Mm.
you'll do just fine as a human being.
So you, as a credit, and not just credit, I mean, you ran all of analytics, information, data, so many different functions, and the bank.
Yeah,
Um, uh, this changed a lot over the time that you were there.
right.
At this point, are we at a stage where just the numbers can decide your credit worthiness, or is there a role for people in that process anymore?
I think there are two questions embedded in you, which is, uh, in my long journey with credit, how have things changed? And the second portion. So let me answer the first, and then I'll provide my thinking on the second. I think when I joined in, the total consumer outstanding in the United States were $2 trillion. Now they are $14 trillion. The credit card outstandings were 100 billion. Now they're over $1 trillion. Mortgages were like 1.5 billion. So the financial system was being set up to serve a far broader array of people than it was serving at that time. So at that time, it was an apprentice discipline. You sort of learned by observing others. It took 20 to 30 years to become good at it. Your principal job was collections and trying to reduce your credit losses. And I remember my colleagues, when you judge new account applications, they would judge, in addition to income, they would judge it by looking at if you filled the application in capital letters, if you filled it in ink, and so on. It
Wow.
was an important criteria. And maybe AI is doing that today as well.
Mhm.
But in time, as the credit expanded and as we saw it expanding to a
Mhm.
wider population, we said that these tools will not do the job that was necessary. And so we established some principles for ourselves. We said, good credit management must work not just at underwriting or collections, but must work everywhere across the system. And its most critical value is in the early stages when you're designing products, pricing, and underwriting. And we said this logic-based criteria will not be sufficient, that it needs to be embedded with analytics. And I tell you a nice story that, when I first joined, I put together a very nice statistical model to predict the probability of default, which all my colleagues disagreed with. So we took 100 cases, we put them in a drawer. They said, 18 will go delinquent. The model said 22. And we looked at 120 days later, and it turned out that they were correct, and the model was not correct. And basically, what it required us all to do was to actually work in an operating center to understand the nuances of what we do and to embed the science with the actual operation and the human wisdom together. And we did that. It took us an year, but at that time, our system clearly improved over the pure statistical or a pure uh, human intelligence based system. So there was an
But is
important
it at
learning.
the autopilot stage now? So
Uh,
machines learn, they become better.
yeah, I don't think, my experience has been that it never can turn into an autopilot stage. It never will be able to turn because the nuances of your business, the you know, compliance being an art, the brand that you have, all those cannot be intelligently embedded into a computer.
Mhm.
Many decisions can be, but the decisions are a mechanism to assist human beings make better decisions. Let me try to give you some examples about it. One of the things when we first brought AI into our own company, it basically said that if you give a higher line to a customer than you're giving, you'll have more revenue and less loss,
Mhm.
because our historical trends were that more higher lines produce less loss. It wasn't because we were giving them more credit. It was because a control system was designed to
Yep.
have special attention to people with higher exposure lines. And so if you left it automated like that, it would have caused a fiasco for
Yep.
us as a business. Same thing with new customers, that it said all new customers are risky because they just
Yep.
were new. And so we said, well, that, and that would result in not booking anybody in that
Anybody.
example. And so you had to go through your application process, how you're transferring new customer application to your ongoing risk management, and then make sure your statistical and AI tools are in sync with your processes. So I don't think human intelligence will go away. I think human intelligence and intuition will have to rise to a new and higher level, with many mechanical tasks being just handled by
By
AI.
machine. Yeah, no, this confounding of causality and correlation is a classic problem. All red Ferrari drivers are rich, but doesn't mean that if you went out and bought a red Ferrari, you'd become rich.
Yeah. Yeah, so even like, many companies are going through a stress test right now, a mid-year stress test by the Fed. And the thing is, if I was to look at AI alone, you're in a situation when your key indicators of economy are at their close to worst levels, and all the write-offs are close to the lowest levels. And you say,
Mhm.
well, how do you use AI here to predict write-off rates in the next 9 to 13 quarters,
Mhm.
with very similar economic indicators as right now?
Right.
And it will look like, the mere use of AI will cause you to believe that your write-off rates will never rise. It'll give you a very false picture of what you're trying to do. And here
Mhm.
again, the human intuition mixed with AI will help you sort of get a much clearer picture than you could ever get by yourself.
Ash, you've been a mentor and a role model for a whole generation of people who have worked in this industry in finance, not just in American Express, but such a big influence because people have left and gone and carried the things that were built there, mostly under your leadership. Now you're working with several cutting edge companies. What excites you? What are some of the path breaking capabilities that are being built in these companies that you're involved with that excites you and that you're involved in?
Yeah, I think that my first thing that excites me is that I want the people that I work with, these are very young people, they give their all to improve the system. So my first portion is that I want them to shine. So for me, it's a very personal matter. I want them to shine. I want them to grow. I want young people to, this next generation to drive the system forward. I was a beneficiary of people before me doing such a great job. And I want the same to happen in the system, that the speed of innovation rise and so on. But one thing I'm careful of is that I only really work with companies that put the interests of customer first and put the shareholder value as a collateral gain of serving customers. This is very important to me as a human being. The third thing that excites me is that it's a tremendous learning experience for me, because
Mhm.
technology is just changing so rapidly, customer attitudes are changing so rapidly, that I'm learning and I'm gaining as a person. And finally, the products that we are producing, are just nothing short of world class, very fundamental, transformative products. And I can share some examples for you here.
Yeah, no. Look, at this stage of success and experience, most people are learning how to perfect their 3 foot or 5 foot putt and how to differentiate between a 300 and $1,000 bottle of wine. But you seem to be still struggling with how to build better capabilities in this industry. So do share some examples. It'll be great.
Well, first is that it's not either or in life. Okay, it's not
Hmm.
either or. You can, if you sort of manage your time well, you can do both. And on that front, you probably know that I'm trying to invest my time in learning how to play bridge well. I'm trying to learn how to do magic. It's something that I've tried for some time, and I want to become a better magician. I'm trying to learn Spanish as we speak. I'm trying to improve my Spanish skills because it's a language I can learn. and it's a culture that I love. But I think that my main driver of serving is, again, beyond my desire to learn, is to sort of think how AI can fundamentally change the functioning of our society. We all know that it can reduce costs of doing things. We all know that, that it can reduce the time to market and how products are done and so on. But the AI promise is likely to be a lot bigger, that AI is promising to customize products based on dialogue. All my working life, we were on monologue. So it's creating a segment of one in designing products that are unique for you and in a very responsible fashion. The other thing that AI is doing well is that as your needs change, as you have, I don't know, however the needs change as a human being, as you grow, AI is sort of working with you and sort of adjusting the products and services to satisfy your need. And it's a very dynamic change. AI can also, AI is about data and analytics. So it can synthesize what seem like inconsistent disciplines like investing, healthcare, insurance, etc.
Mm.
So it can sort of turn the business away from a product into serving a customer. And that itself can bring a very bright future and a tremendous help for people as well. It can also change the fundamentals way how we work. Yeah, and healthcare is some very good. Healthcare provides some very good examples of it. So this searching this unknown is what sort of gets me motivated and excited every day.
Okay. Um, Changing gears a little, Ash, as I mentioned, and you talked about it as well, the whole mentorship aspect. And I remember when I started my first company, Inductis, you were a mentor, a supporter, and definitely we owe a big gratitude for that early support, which I know you have given to several different people. You've also chosen to be a trustee of Big Brothers and Big Sisters. Tell us, why did you choose mentoring children as your way to engage with the community? There are so many different
Um,
causes
yeah,
that people choose.
I think, Sandeep, the thing is with young children is almost like a startup, where a small amount of change in direction can have incredible effect on the life of these children. Um, I first couple of years ago, I met this guy. He was 15 years old. He showed me a handwritten letter from his brother from prison, and the brother was 30 years old. And the brother said, "Thank you for helping my brother, because at this age, which is 15 for the older brother, I was already in prison. And I never really saw my brother, and you have changed his life." I met another girl, she had sickle cell anemia, and she said she had lost the desire to live because of difficulties of addressing it. But when we worked with her and we had the created mentoring relationship with her, she was this one very happy person. She still needed to go to the hospital 3 times a week, but she had started looking at life in a very positive fashion. One of the things I would do, Sandeep, and this may sound a little bit fun and unique, is I would invite about 30 people to our office once a year to our company's boardroom. And I would
Mhm.
have them sit on the chair where our board members like Vernon Jordan or Henry Kissinger sat, and others. And I would say that if you look at the life of those people, at your age, they were the most ordinary people. And if you guys work hard and if you live with good values and if you're focused, you could become Henry Kissinger or Vernon Jordan tomorrow. And that was the most motivating lesson for these people. And they're just, to see these people just grow is, one of the most delightful part of my life. I act as a trustee, but I also act as a treasurer. So I'm sort of daily watching financials, making sure that we are absolute, we have cost control, that we are putting every dime of people's money to the right cause as well. So those are some reasons. So
Yeah.
Dave, in the end, I think the biggest beneficiary of my effort is still me. It's crystal clear that it's clearing my conscience, It's helping me learn from young people. It's helping me have a bigger and better understanding of the society. And it's telling me every morning how blessed I am as a human being, that I'm healthy, that I had good parents, loving parents, and so on. And to never remember how grateful I should feel as a human being to what
Mhm,
the society has done for me.
mhm, mhm. Okay. Um, you also obviously are a member of the Indian American community and a leader and perceived as somebody who has blazed a path of success that a lot of other people look up to. And I know you were involved in setting up IIT Delhi Foundation and other community organizations. For the community of Indian Americans and narrowly IITians, any message on where do you think the community is in America now and where do you see it going in the next 10 years?
My first message is a big thank you. A big thank you to my colleagues, to the Indian community, because Indian community is very hardworking. Indian community is, focused on children, it focuses on education, it lives with good morals, it lives with good values, and I associate with it in a tremendous way. And I just like people. It's not a homogeneous community because, as you
Mhm,
know, everybody has a different language, different culture, different bringing up, and so on. But still, you could think of it as a community in a very positive fashion. I think two things that I would like us to do more of. One is that we become very busy on short-term needs, whether it's office related or children related. And we need to set a little bit time aside to address the more bigger or medium-term challenges in a system. The second thing I would like us to do a bit more of is to act as a community a little bit more that many other communities do. So and sort of and bring up some common themes that are relevant to the Indian community and make them rise to a higher level so that they can be addressed in a more intelligent way.
And you're thinking of what cultural engagement, political engagement? What kind of engagement do you think the community needs to focus on?
I think cultural engagement is good, political engagement is good, but I also feel that you need to take the time to serve the system, like Big Brothers and so on, because there you meet different people and your own understanding of the society increases as well.
Mhm,
Okay, and you sort of, issues about crime, issues about maintaining our democratic system intact. Those issues do matter to me. Those are things we take for granted, but they're not something that can forever last until we take an active role in
mhm,
their formation and in their health.
mhm.
So,
Okay. So more involvement in the actual civic society of our adopted homeland and for our children their native homeland.
correct, correct, exactly, exactly.
Okay, changing gears yet again. Let's talk about you as a person. With all the things we just counted, Ash, I don't know if you ever have a free afternoon, but if you do, how do you spend it?
Um, as I told you before, I play bridge.
Mhm.
I try to practice my skill at magic.
Is that for your
And
grandchildren? Where is this interest in magic coming from?
the interest, sort of, it came from YouTube where I watched a lot of card tricks and so on. And I tried to do it myself, but I realized that I'm not good at it and it requires a lot of practice to
Mhm,
be able to do this. So
mhm,
that's what I would do. I would spend time with my grandchildren. That is a very favorite hobby of mine. Just listening to their thinking and just learning from how they analyze the world.
Tell us one time you faced failure and what was the learning from that?
Um, I think that you face failures many times. One example was early on, I was interviewing for a job in the company, And I felt that the person who got the job, so there were very few minorities in the company at that time. I felt the person who got the job did not quite have the skill for the job, and I should have gotten the job. And so I was annoyed about it for a week. But later on, I said, well, let's go through things that I can control and I can improve about myself and I can
Mhm.
invest in myself. And so that's what I focused on. I went back to the person, I asked their rationale, and I tried to focus on myself. And a year later, it became all okay. I sort of, my career moved on as a person. I think I, in the recession in 2008 and 9, I thought that I basically failed our company because our write-off rates went 5x over they were. And I was the person in charge. And customers felt very disrupted into that exercise. But my wife would come in, sort of the lesson to learn is to sort of speak your feeling. Don't hide your feeling inside of you. And I would say this to my wife that how poor a job I do. And she would always come back and say that, listen, you're working in the context of a bigger economy where your control is still very limited. While you may not believe that, but your control is very limited. And think of it, do the best job you can, uh, listen to people, listen to customers, and things will work out just fine. Fortunately, we did come out well, better than any financial institution after the Great Recession. And we sort of not only came out well, we invested in AI and machine learning, which is the bedrock foundation of our current success.
Good to hear that Anita is the one who reminded you of the lessons of Gita and just work and don't focus on the outcome part. But that's when you're so close, I guess it's hard to see what you can or can't control of the situation.
Yes.
Um,
And, and you're so attached that nothing but the best outcome will do, even in short term. And you start overjudging yourself as a person.
any fears? Something you're afraid of?
I don't know how to swim, and I'm afraid that I will not be able to save a person from drowning. I could drown, that does not worry me. What worries me is that I won't be able to save another human being. So, what I'm deciding to do is for a 6 week period, from Thanksgiving to 4th of January, I'm going to get a coach who can teach me, and this will be my final version, whether I can learn how to swim or not. That's what I'm going to
Okay.
do, and
So, so,
hopefully,
so cruises are out for you, or you okay with those?
oh, cruises I'm fine with. Cruises I'm fine with, and I can jump in the ocean water with a life vest on myself, but I cannot swim.
Okay. All right, Ash. These are now rapid fire questions. Whatever pops in your head, Ferrari or Rolls Royce?
Ferrari, marvel of engineering.
Okay. Beer or Bordeaux?
Bordeaux for taste and just tradition, and it's a piece of art.
Okay. Bordeaux or masala chai?
I think nothing can beat masala chai. Uh, I don't drink coffee, but I just love the Indian tea. Yes.
What is one comfort food if the loss rates are going up? What gives you comfort from food side?
Uh, the South Indian dish called dosa. I could eat dosa every day of my life.
Uh-huh.
And it takes time to eat. So while I'm eating, I can sort of reflect and think through the path ahead.
What's the most played song or music on your phone or iPod or whatever you use to listen?
There are two, and they're two different ones. So
Mhm.
one song I listen to every day of my life is the song from Mahatma Gandhi, which is called Vaishnavan To Tene Kahiye, Peer Parai Jane Re. I would just urge everyone to listen and follow the meanings. And it helps me calm down and be a better person for the rest of my life. The other song I listen to a lot is from Paul McCartney, It's called Let It Be. So I listen to a lot of songs as my, on a daily basis, but those are the two that I listen to a lot. And
Mhm.
those help me sort of be a better person.
Okay. Last of this, Ash, when did you do something naughty and got caught?
um, when I was very young, I used to like fire. Okay. And we had this, we lived in a, ground floor in a house, and there used to be water pipes coming from the upper floors and putting the water down. So what we would do is every pocket money we had, we would take the paper and put the paper in through those pipes and light it on fire. And
Mhm.
it would sort of create a big ooh noise, and then you would see all this paper and smoke come out of the pipe in the other direction from the top.
Mhm.
And we were doing that for maybe a few months, and that's what sort of marvel the engineering of science around how heat works. One day my mother saw us doing this, and she thought that we would cause the pipes to burst as a result of being this way. And so she asked us, she didn't tell us not to do it. She just asked us what we were doing and why. We described it, and she offered her thinking, but she did not offer her decision. And based upon that, we stopped doing
Wow.
it.
Wow, that's okay. Um, Final question, Ash. We talked about many different things. How would you put your brand in 10 words or as little as possible?
I think I'm a reliable person. That when I say something, I you can trust me. You do not need to check a second time. The second thing is that when you are in need, you can call me. I will assist you or work with you and thick and thin. Obviously, I don't want to promote wrong things, but within, I'll be here to be for you in good and challenging times alike. And I'm a very curious person. I ask a lot of questions. I'm very curious about you as a human being. I want to learn from your thinking. I'm very curious, and I utilize the curiosity and asking you questions to sort of drive my own ability to think and innovate.
Thank you, Ash. Thank you so much for spending the time with us.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me an opportunity